Hello and welcome. I'm Formless Geoff 3, and you've tuned into the finale of my Paranormal Experience series. From the first video to the second, I hope I've delivered a thrilling journey, and with this, the final installment, I aim to bring you the best experiences yet. Whether you've had similar encounters or you're just here for the ride, I appreciate you joining me. Regardless of your beliefs, I hope these videos have been enjoyable for you as they have been for me to share. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the final, and possibly the most exciting, chapter of the series. The last significant event I remember from that house happened when my brother came over to hang out. I was playing Silent Hill 2 on a chilly, windy afternoon close to Halloween. Suddenly, and without warning, the front door burst open with such force that it slammed both my bedroom and bathroom doors shut. My brother, in an obvious state of panic, didn't know what to do and ran outside and honestly ran down the road. I went after him to convince him to come back and stay, and he decided he was done and wanted to go home. Now, I do need to add a little bit of context here. My brother was living with my grandmother at the time. He never left her house when my dad died, and he just felt more comfortable living with her. So that's where he was living, but he would come over on the weekends and hang out with the family and come and see us. Later that night, feeling down after being rejected by a girl I liked, I was moping around and listening to some music. As I lay on the back of my bed, I heard a loud pop, followed by the sound of glass breaking. I discovered that my bedroom light bulb had exploded. I went to the front of the house to grab a flashlight and a new light bulb. After replacing the broken bulb, I noticed that a figurine that was one of my father's, a set of monkey heads, symbolizing see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, a religious religious thing, was facing the wall. Now, I have noticed that this thing was facing the wall quite often. I always made sure that it faced me when I was sleeping. I just felt more comfortable that way. So I was very annoyed to find it that it was moved. After I noticed my figure, my alarm clock started going off. I hit the snooze button, but it continued to ring. Very much confused, I grabbed the clock and realized not only did it not have batteries, it wasn't plugged in, and it didn't even have time on there, but it was ringing. I decided to destroy the clock, thinking that it was just malfunctioning. And as I left my room to discard the broken clock, my figurine, the monkey statue, flew across the room and smashed into the wall. I heard it hit off the wall. When I came back into the room, I noticed that's what it was. Whatever it was did not like that figurine. And sadly, that figurine actually vanished. Many years later, I lost it somehow, or someone stole it. Don't know what happened to it, but that was the last thing I actually had of my father's. My mother once shared a troubling experience she had. She was sick and sleeping during the day. She had this vivid vision or a dream of a featureless man in a trench coat, or as she called it, a duster, walking slowly up the steps to our house. She was very interested in the Old West, hence why she said duster, and it seemed this entity appeared in a form that would be most comforting to her. When the man reached the door, she woke up. Much later that evening, and feeling much better, she receives a call that her own father has suffered a stroke and that he wasn't going to make it through the night. She and my sister went to go be with him during his final moments. The activity in the house diminished for quite some time after that experience, and sadly, my grandfather, her father, did pass away that night. Years later, my sister had a daughter who was 4, got roped into babysitting her one day. While she was playing with toys in my younger brother's bedrooms, I noticed that she was talking to someone. Curious, I asked who she was talking to. She giggled, saying the man silly. She liked to use the word silly, is kind of how she just thought I was being, weird, and that I couldn't see the guy. She pointed to the corner of the room, at the ceiling. I kind of just chalked it up to an imaginary friend and left her at it. However, every time she visited, she would talk to this man in the room, and it was incredibly unsettling. Just for the simple fact that sometimes it sounded like she was picking up conversations she had the week prior with this man, almost as if he was interrogating her, and she was answering his questions. Very, very, very creepy. Many years later, we moved into what seemed like the perfect home, after I'd been homeless and staying in a motel for many years. Finally, having a place of our own again was a relief. However, the strange activity began almost immediately. I do want to add a little bit of context here. We were given a house by charity. It was still something that we had to pay for. We had a loan for it. My mother went to college to improve her life and to improve our lives. It did not end in a job, sadly. We got behind on bills, and they foreclosed on us. Hence why we lost that house. So, one night around 2 a.m., I was still awake on my day off. My brother was asleep on the couch. Suddenly, I saw a bright white light emanating from the area near his feet. Shocked, I dropped what I was holding and quickly shut my door, questioning what I had just witnessed. Summoning my courage, I ventured into the front room, but the light had disappeared. I placed my dishes in the sink and retreated to my room, still unsettled by the encounter and unsure what I had witnessed. I began to notice a loud, rhythmic walking sound coming from above. The house had an attic that we never used, so nothing should have been up there. The noises sounded like heavy boots clumping on wood. Definitely not the sound of an animal. Despite hearing this day after day, I wondered if I was imagining it since no one else mentioned it. Then one day, my cat Bella, who I often nickname Ears because she hears everything, started acting strangely. She walked from the back door to the living room, then from the living room to the hallway, all while intently staring at the ceiling, following the walking noise. Her behavior pretty much confirmed to me that I wasn't losing my mind. While sitting in the living room, I began to notice movement out of the corner of my eye, coming from the window to my right. This window overlooked the long and dark backyard I had, making it difficult to see what was out there. Initially, I thought it may have been a tree limb swaying, but one day, I caught a glimpse of what appeared to be a woman in white. It reminded me of reminded me of the white figure that I had seen at the feet of my brother, which would have been many months later from that encounter. This figure seemed to pace back and forth in front of the window continuously, never reacting to my presence. It was as if it was trapped in a repetitive cycle, performing the same action over and over without any awareness of me. During the winter, I found a kitten outside and decided to take her in. She was a little homeless tuxedo kitty, and she was adorable. She was roughly 3 months old, but had this face that looks perpetually grumpy. I felt the inexplicable urge to name her Zoe, which I did, and her mischievous behavior earned her the nickname Zozo. Now, when Zozo was massive on YouTube, was around the time that I took her in, so hence the reason why I nicknamed her Zozo. I saw it everywhere. I thought it fit her really well. Once winter ended and we moved into spring, I decided to fall asleep with my windows open. It was a nice, cool evening. I was jolted awake by a voice asking, "Are you going to let me in?" A wave of fear washed over me, and I got up, thinking someone might be locked outside. I approached the door and realized it was 3 a.m. It was unlikely that anyone would be out there that was living in my home. I backed away, went back to my room and shut the window. It took me a few hours to fall back asleep, unsettled at the thought that I may have let something or someone into my house because I wasn't being careful. A week later with my kitten, I got distracted by a conversation and didn't notice that she accidentally got her claw stuck in my skin, causing me to start bleeding. Half-jokingly, I said, "Thanks, Demon Kitty, for hurting me," and left the room to grab a bandage. As I did, I suddenly heard what I now know was the doorknob rattling. It was just a rattling noise, and I was unsure where it was coming from, as if someone was trying to open my door, even though it was locked. When the noise stopped, I stepped outside to see if anyone was there, but there was no one around. I chalked it up to being something that I just couldn't explain. The last of the strange occurrences didn't involve my home directly, but rather my neighbor. She was either struggling with addiction or mental illness, and each morning she would go outside and engage in what I could only describe as conversations with God. She would gaze into the sky, gesticulate, as if she was deep in discussion, and sit in the middle of the street. Now, my house was on a dead-end road, so there was minimal traffic, and she sometimes would spend hours doing this. I was off work and gaming with my friends. Since we all worked overnights, we kept a nocturnal schedule. I noticed something unsettling. My window was open, and I saw my neighbor standing in the street outside my house, just staring directly at me. It was around 3 a.m., and it was just very eerie. And this eerie vigil seemed to last for about an hour. I would occasionally glance over to see her, like a zombie, fixated on me. It was deeply unsettling, to say the least. Oddly enough, after that night, the streetlight in front of my house began flickering persistently, in an annoyingly erratic pattern. To avoid further sleep disturbances, I installed a blackout curtain, which thankfully ended my encounter. Fast forward to present day in a new location. My experiences have been relatively mild. The first notable occurrence happened one night while I was in the front room watching TV. Suddenly, I noticed the bathroom light had turned on by itself. I found this strange, so I went to check it out. The light switch in the bathroom requires an upward flip to turn on and a downward flip to turn off. When I checked the switch, it was in the on position, yet I hadn't touched it. This unexplained activation of the light gave me an unsettling feeling. Occasionally, I hear my name being called, usually while I'm listening to something. It's possible that ambient noise is causing me to think I hear someone calling me. I often take my headphones or earbuds off, depending on what I'm listening to, expecting to see or hear someone speaking to me. But when there's no one there, it just gives you a bit of a chilling experience. I have now, for the past year, been hearing a cat meow, but none of my cats are actually meowing. When I started listening out for the meow, I started to notice that it sounded like two of my cats merged. It sounds just wrong. And it bothers me because it sounds like it's mimicking things my cats do. Sometimes my other cats will react to it, but every time I get up to check, there's never a cat meowing, and sometimes they meow to get in and out of bedrooms, but none of them are actually meowing. The next few experiences that I want to tell you are going to be more about how I feel versus anything that I see or experience. Sometimes, when I need to take the trash out at night, I feel a profound sense of being watched as I approach the cans by my front porch. My backyard, in particular, unnerves me. It seems to be darker than it should be and gives off an ominous vibe. Despite never hearing or having any negative experiences back there, it always gives me the creeps. This unsettling feeling exists to the front room as well. The sliding glass door often feels like a portal to something sinister. At night, I find myself too frightened to look outside, overwhelmed by the sensation of being watched. I hate looking through that window at night. I can't understand why, but I suspect that my brain might have seen something it could not quite identify, triggering a fight or flight response. This persistent fear makes me feel like I'm constantly on edge, ready to confront any unseen threat. The next experience that I have is one that tends to anger me more than anything. It involves my cats. Occasionally, I see them running away from something invisible, looking back in fear as if they dart towards me and hide behind my feet. Recently, Bella hissed at something unseen and bolted, glancing over her shoulder as she ran. When I investigated, none of the other cats were near her. Bella, once adventurous and curious, has become the most fearful cat I've ever known. She flinches at every loud noise. I feel helpless and frustrated knowing I can't stop whatever is disturbing the cats, and it does make me incredibly angry. Now that you've heard about my experiences from the age of 8 to my current age of 39, do you believe in the paranormal? Or do you think there might be some scientific explanations for what I've encountered? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Whether you find the experiences intriguing or believe that there could be a rational explanation, please leave a comment to share your perspective. Again, my apologies on this video if it has felt rough to listen to. I am incredibly out of practice on recording, but I do thank you so much for watching. And of course, if you enjoyed this, I would greatly appreciate a follow on whatever platform you're using. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. To stay updated with future content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave me a comment below. Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, take care and keep exploring.